to El Salvador. And Trump won't bring home a dad they deported to El Salvador, a so-called torture prison by the state. Trump's Justice Department just said they want Luigi Mangione dead. The world is racing for Trump's Liberation Day tomorrow, and while most economists are saying it will guarantee a recession, the story voters' historic overnight speech a blip or a spark, and that is a agonized good news story to keep you safe. We're talking about all that and much more on today's brand new Philip DeFranco show. You daily dive into the news, how it's being covered, and how people are reacting to it, starting with this. The Trump administration just admitted despite the fact that he was in the U.S. legally with protected status prohibited the government from sending him to El Salvador. And the reason? Well, court filings, lawyers of the Trump administration said that the man was deported because of an administrative error, even though ICE was aware of his protection from removal to El Salvador. And so now,
yo, what's up, Peter? How you doing, love?
Lawyers, they claim that the American courts don't have the jurisdiction to bring him back. So the man in question is Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia. And according to the court records, he is a Salvadoran national who came to America. In 2019, a U.S. immigration judge granted him a kind of protected legal status called withholding of removal, which means that he was the subject of a deportation order but was still allowed to stay in the U.S. and the government can't deport him back to El Salvador because he's more likely than not to face harm. And with that, the judge specifically cited the fact that he would likely be targeted by Salvadoran gangs if he was deported. And all of this, as it's also been reported that Abrego Garcia is married to a U.S. citizen and has a 5-year-old child. He's also a U.S. citizen, so notably, it
Good evening, Tim. It was great. How's your day?
Went down specifically, according to The Atlantic, which first broke the story, Abrego Garcia was stopped by ICE agents on the way to pick up his son from the house of the boy's grandmother on March 12th, with the agents allegedly telling him that his protected status had changed and waited for his wife to come to the scene to take care of his child and then drove away. Within 2 days, he had been transferred to an ICE staging facility in Texas. But then, one day after that, on March 15th, and being placed on one of those 3 flights that the Trump administration used to send people to El Salvador's terrorism confinement center. Right in this, despite concerns about due process, questionable legality, especially because most of the deportees were Venezuelan, and the fact that a judge ordered the flights to turn around or stay on the ground. You know, since he was deported, Abrego Garcia's family said they've had 0 contact with him.
Good to hear, love.
His wife also said that she identified him based on his tattoos and scars and news photographs of the prison released by the Salvadoran president, which notably is also the same prison that Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem did her widely criticized tour and social media blitz last week. Now, with all this, one very important thing to keep in mind here is that in addition to having protected status, Abrego Garcia has not been charged with any kind of crime. And this, despite the fact that you had J.D. Vance claiming on X that court documents show he was a convicted MS-13 gang member with no legal right to be here. Because as places like Axios have explained, Abrego Garcia has not been convicted of gang-related crimes. He was just accused of it in court. Right? While Vance didn't link to the evidence that he was talking about, the documents he at least appears to be referring to are court filings from Trump administration lawyers. And there, you have the lawyers alleging that during Abrego Garcia's 2019 deportation proceedings, an informant told ICE that he was a member of the gang MS-13, arguing that the judge denied him bond because the evidence shows that he is a verified member of MS-13 and he did not present evidence to rebut those claims. With that, Simon Sandoval-Maschenberg, a lawyer for Abrego Garcia, firmly denied the accusation, saying the only basis of his gang membership was a confidential informant. And adding, in court filings, the U.S. government has never produced an iota of evidence to support this unfounded accusation, with a lawyer also telling The Atlantic that the allegations against Abrego Garcia stem from an incident where 3 others were detained by police in a Maryland Home Depot parking lot. And during questioning there, one man told the officers that Abrego Garcia was a gang member, but then that man offered no proof, and police filings show that the officers didn't actually even believe him and refused to identify him as a gang member. With the attorney then adding that since Abrego Garcia was granted his withholding of removal in 2019, he has had no contact with any law enforcement agency.
What's up, Roblox
complied with the requirements to check in annually with ICE. When White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was asked this afternoon what evidence Vance had for his claims that Abrego Garcia had been convicted, she just said that the government had, quote, a lot of evidence and that she herself saw it this morning. Notably, she also didn't provide any information about what the evidence was or why it hadn't been presented in the court. But also, regardless of the gang tie allegation, Sandoval-Maschenberg argues that this deportation is flatly illegal because no matter how you feel about it, a judge explicitly protected Abrego Garcia from being deported. But if the government wants to deport someone with protected status, they usually have to reopen the case and introduce new evidence for deportation, which a very key thing is why you even have government attorneys telling The Atlantic that they are stunned by this case. With Sandoval-Maschenberg also telling the outlet that he believes believes that Trump officials deported his client, quote, through extrajudicial means because they believed that going through the immigration judge process took too long and they feared that they might not win all of their cases. With him adding that he's never seen a case where the government knowingly deported someone who would receive protected legal status from an immigration judge. Right to that point, Trump's lawyers aren't even trying to hide the fact that they knew he had protected status. In their court filings, they explicitly wrote, ICE was aware of this grant of withholding of removal at the time of Abrego Garcia's removal from the United States. Reference was made to this status on internal forms. With the lawyers also explaining that Abrego Garcia wasn't
no, it's current events. It's Philip DeFranco. He covers current news.
Moved up the list as other detainees were removed from the flight, and claiming that the flight manifest did not indicate that Abrego Garcia should not be removed. And adding, through administrative error, Abrego Garcia was removed from the United States to El Salvador. This was an oversight. But then, going on to insist that his deportation was carried out in good faith because his purported
this just happened.
13, with Sandoval Machenberg also telling the outlet that the case appears to be the first time the Trump administration has admitted to errors when it sent 3 plane loads of Salvadoran and Venezuelan deportees to the Salvadoran prison. Right, and this, as we've talked about before, attorneys for some of those people have accused the Trump administration of falsely labeling their clients as gang members because of their tattoos that have nothing to do with gangs. But there, Trump officials have disputed those claims amid widespread concerns about violations of due process. And with that said, as far as what happens next with Abrego Garcia's case, lawyers representing him and his family have asked the court to order the Trump administration to ask for his return, and that, even if it means withholding payment to the Salvadoran government, which is claimed is getting $6 million annually to jail U.S. deportees. Then, on the other side, you have the Trump administration asking the court to dismiss those requests on multiple grounds, arguing that Trump's primacy in foreign affairs outweighs the interests of Abrego Garcia and his family. And this, as I mentioned earlier, claiming that U.S. courts don't have the jurisdiction to order his release. But notably, Sandoval Machenberg has hit back against that last argument, telling the Atlantic, if that's true, the immigration laws are meaningless to all of them, because the government can deport whoever they want, wherever they want, whenever they want, and no court can do anything about it once it's done. So for now, we're largely going to have to just wait to see how this plays out, though in the meantime, unsurprisingly, the whole situation has sparked a ton of backlash. And in fact, we're seeing Trump's broader deportation tactics being so controversial that you have some unlikely voices
How you
this, even including the likes of Joe Rogan, who of course famously endorsed Trump. Or with Rogan talking about these efforts on his podcast this weekend with political commentator Konstantin Kisin. And while Rogan did praise Trump for lowering the number of illegal migrant crossings at the border, we also saw this.
The thing is, like,
what does your video sound like? Go to artlist.io and get the best music and sound effects for your videos. This is not the real world. This is your creation.
you got to get scared that people who are not criminals are getting, like, lassoed up and deported.
Yeah, that's kind of what people have been trying to say for a long time, yeah?
Prisons.
When you do things quickly and you do things aggressively, that's how you get shit done. But that's also when mistakes get made.
Right.
And I think
Yeah.
a human being plucked out of nowhere and ending up in a country he's never been in a maximum security prison with gang members, seems like a bad thing to happen.
No shit.
It's horrific.
Yeah, that is
Oh,
ultimately
man.
where we are
What's
right
up,
now with this
Joshua? How
file.
you doing?
We have to keep our eyes on it. There's seemingly constant developments, but in the meantime, I gotta ask you, what are your thoughts here? Because for those that are new here, yes, this is a news show, but I also want it to be a conversation. But then from that, next up, some quick but big news. The Trump Justice Department wants Luigi Mangione dead. Or the same, just
Yeah.
and Bondi
Oh,
directing federal
man.
prosecutors to seek the death
Yikes.
penalty for Mangione. Right, this is, we all know the story. He's accused of shooting and killing United Healthcare CEO.
My day is
Brian
good. How's
Thompson.
yours,
Bondi
Joshua?
calling Thompson's killing a premeditated, cold-blooded assassination that shocked America, and notably citing President Trump's agenda to stop violent crime and make America safe again. Right in this, notably following the first day of his second term, where Trump signed an order directing the AG to pursue the death penalty for all crimes of severity, demanding its use. And that, after Biden put a moratorium on it back in 2021. But yes,
Achoo!
this is big news. It's also been expected. But also the
Achoo!
thing here is it could take a minute before any part of this story actually plays out. Because in addition to the federal charges, he's also facing state charges in New York and Pennsylvania. And we've seen prosecutors on both sides saying they're okay with letting the New York case play out first. And notably there, New York doesn't have the death penalty, so he's facing up to life without parole. So a big update, an expect update, and we're going to be seeing more soon. And then I've got more news you need to know in just a moment. But first, parenting is a non-stop marathon with chasing soccer balls through mud, racing to games, and pivoting to dinner plans, all while staying incredibly present. The struggle is real even when the life is good. And that is why Bessie's weekend sneakers are my go-to for whatever life throws at me. Make the struggle less by choosing today's sponsor, Bessie, they offer shoes and apparel designed for you not to worry about weather. You know, their sneakers, like all their products, they're built for real life. Like when I'm at my kid's game and it's sunny one minute and the next it's a storm rolling in. Or when you're chasing your dog through wet grass or just enjoying a hike without worrying about the weather or terrain. Bessie handles it all from sand to snow.
Good to hear.
They have seamlessly blended
Nice,
style.
Tim. Sounds
These
lovely.
shoes have the look of stylish footwear, but they're designed like rain boots, perfect for everything from jeans to gym shorts. In comfort, it's like wearing a sock. Whether it's daily walks, weekend hikes, or just looking put together in any weather, they have you covered head to toe. So start saying yes more without worrying about the weather. Bessie has you covered with waterproof protection, comfort, and readiness for anything. Just scan the QR code or go to bessie.com/DeFranco and get automatic 15% off your first order at checkout. That's bessie.com/DeFranco. Get them now. But then, next up from that, we gotta talk about the political, social media, and business news of the TikTok ban deadline approaching again. Because even though January feels like a million years ago at this point, it was just over 70 days ago that TikTok went dark for around 12 hours, with Trump then signing an executive order to delay the ban by, well, 75 days. Which, to save you pulling out a calendar, that means that the extension is up on Saturday, April 5th. So yet again, the future of the app is up in the air because the law requires that the app's owners, ByteDance, divest from the company or get the boot in the United States, and right now, it's unclear who would actually take over. Though with that, Trump told reporters on Air Force One this week that he expects the deal to be made before Saturday.
There's tremendous interest in TikTok. The decision's going to be my decision, as you know, through Congress. They've given me the power to make the decision. And we have a great team of people essentially taking bids. I'd like to see TikTok remain alive.
Will you extend the deadline?
Well, there'll be a deal with TikTok.
So nothing too specific from him, and in fact, that's been kind of what he's been saying for roughly the last month when asked about the matter.
But we have a lot of interest in TikTok. We're dealing with 4 different groups, and a lot of people want it, and it's up to me.
You know, even though we haven't gotten a ton of concrete answers from him, there has been a ton of reporting over the past few months on the many names and groups putting their hat in the ring. As you might remember, both Microsoft and Oracle have been mentioned as interested, as has billionaire Frank McCourt. It's also been reported that Mr. Beast is part of a bid being led by entrepreneur Jesse Tinsley. And I mean, Trump, he's even floated the idea of a U.S. sovereign wealth fund buying TikTok. And then, over the weekend, the New York Times also reported that the private equity group Blackstone is considering taking a small stake in TikTok, with Times there adding, Trump has been repeatedly approached by parties pitching him ideas, and his interest in different arrangements can be fleeting. Though also, according to the outlet, right now, one of the most likely deals is that the existing U.S. investors in ByteDance just roll their new stakes to a new independent global TikTok company. Additionally, we've seen other reports saying that Oracle is in fact the frontrunner, but there could be some legal issues there. For example, Politico reported that one deal being discussed in the White House would involve Oracle running TikTok but saving a role for ByteDance. And that, even though the law requires ByteDance to give up control of the company and algorithm, retaining at most a 20% financial stake in TikTok. And so even though some in Washington are trying to fight against any deal that includes carve-outs for ByteDance, Politico is reporting that there may be little anyone can actually do to prevent this deal, even if it does go against the law. But then with saying that, you know, some might wonder what happens if there is no deal, right? If talks with whoever falls through, and by Saturday, nothing's on the books. Well, even though Trump has insisted that it will not be necessary, he has previously said that he is willing to extend the deadline yet again. So it wouldn't be the craziest thing if we end up meeting up same place, same time again, like in July. Additionally, he's suggested that he has a few tricks up his sleeve, like cutting some tariffs on China to get a deal through. Also, something that's interesting with the situation is you might have noticed that people on the app seem a lot less nervous about the potential of a ban, which, you know, is a standout thing, because last time in the week leading up to the ban, I mean, everyone was in full-blown panic mode. But largely, this time around at least so far, it's mostly business as usual on the app. Because even seeing CNBC doing a report, talking to creators who say they're just less nervous about it, right? Some saying that they just don't feel like the app is actually going to get banned, and others noting that they've had the time to diversify their platforms and reach. And so for now, we're just kind of having to wait to see how things play out into the weekend. But then, next up today, y'all, we gotta talk about how he may be done by the time that you're seeing this, but as of right now, Cory Booker is still going on and on and on and on. What I mean, if you haven't seen, is that the Democratic senator from New Jersey decided to attempt a marathon speech on the Senate floor in protest of Trump. Right, so at 7 p.m. on Monday night, he began speaking and vowed to continue as long as I am physically able, and quoting the late civil rights icon John Lewis before undertaking his own journey.
He said, get into trouble, necessary trouble. Help redeem the soul of America. And so I start tonight thinking about back in the last 71 days. Get into trouble, necessary trouble, help redeem the soul of America, and had to ask myself.
Listen, we've all been there. That constant of not knowing if you'll hit a problem, the endless Slack messages, the awkward, just.
he's my hero. How am I living up to his words?
Right with that, he was off, blasting the Trump administration for everything it's done over the past few months. With him speaking virtually non-stop, right? The only time he paused were to take questions from fellow Democrats who were really just giving him a chance to catch his breath. And so as I'm recording this at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, he is still going, passing the 22-hour mark. Now with this, I'll say technically it's not a filibuster because it's not actually blocking any legislation right now. But still, what we're seeing is that it's going to go down as one of the longest speeches in congressional history. We're with it up there with Ted Cruz's 21 hours, Chris Murphy's 15 hours, and Bernie Sanders' 8.5 hours. Though notably, the record was set by then Senator Strom Thurmond, a South Carolina segregationist who spoke for 24 hours and 18 minutes in 1957. So for now, we'll have to wait to see where Cory Booker's going to land in the history books, though I will also say it's been very interesting to see Democrats rallying around this. Right, in recent weeks and months, there are a lot of people who have been aligned with the Democratic Party saying that they haven't been happy with the party, with more and more people saying they want to see things like how AOC and Bernie Sanders have been going out and interacting with the people and making loud noises. Well, this is obviously in a different avenue. It's not out there with the people, it's on the floor. We've seen many saying, yes, more of this. This is not normal, so don't act normal. But as far as if this is a blip or yet another spark that could lead to a fire, that remains to be seen. But then, next up from that, we gotta talk about Trump is handing over billions of dollars to Elon Musk, and Jon Stewart is blaming Democrats for it, at least partially. So let's start with the money. $42 billion of it, in fact, all of which is supposed to go towards the poorest Americans. Because you see, one of the things that Biden's 2021 infrastructure bill did was create a federal grant program called Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, or BEAD for short, with the purpose being to hook up the estimated 22 million Americans without at-home internet to high-speed underground fiber optic cables. And for the past 4 years, states have been crawling through the regulatory obstacle course to get their hands on that money and start digging. Then, earlier this month, Trump's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick announced that BEAD was getting overhauled, with him launching what he called a rigorous review of the program, cutting out red tape, and most notably making it tech neutral, meaning that instead of just extending fiber optic cables to homes and businesses, the program would also open up satellite internet, which in effect brings in Starlink, right? Elon Musk's satellite internet service. But especially because there are very few other serious providers and none of them focus on the consumer market the way that Starlink does. I mean, even Amazon's Kuiper, the closest competitor here, it's just launching its first batch of satellites this year, and the full constellation, that'll be less than half the size of Starlink. Now with this, you have the White House arguing that the move will get broadband more quickly and for less money, but also, as basically every expert has pointed out, fiber optic is cheaper, faster, and generally more stable than satellite internet. Because while satellite is definitely cheaper to set up initially, it's arguably more expensive in the long run. The Starlink service that's comparable to high-speed fiber costs some $120 a month, whereas fiber itself, it costs around $80 a month. So with that, you have people like Drew Garner with a Venture Institute for Broadband and Society explaining to NPR. Satellite internet is like a dirt road. Fiber internet is like a highway. You can build a few houses off a dirt road, but you can build hospitals, schools, businesses, and entire cities off a highway. And so as the metaphor suggests, satellite service works well for remote locations that have no other option. But the whole point of this grant program was to give those areas another better option. And this is you critics saying that what makes this whole situation even more ironic is that Republicans have criticized Biden's infrastructure plans for charging stations or broadband networks being too slow. Now we're seeing critics fear that Trump's rigorous review of BEAD, that it's going to slow it down even more. For example, Evan Feynman, who ran BEAD until earlier this month, telling NPR, I'm sympathetic to the argument that the program should have gone faster. But the program went too slowly does not lead logically to we should then slow the program down more so we can provide worse connections at a higher end user cost. Saying West Virginia was ahead of schedule, under budget, and ready to provide excellent connections for every West Virginian home and business. How can anyone go back and say, let's go back to the drawing board? And adding, it's hard to identify any sensible case for upending these plans based on the technology or the economics. Which is then why we've seen so many saying this is a transparently corrupt way to further enrich Elon Musk with taxpayer dollars. And with that, you have Republicans countering, saying they're not the ones putting the thumb on the scale, saying they're just making the program tech neutral, with them then pointing the finger back at Democrats for, as they claim, deliberately excluding Starlink from consideration for political reasons, as well as generally tying up the whole program in red tape with Ariel Roth, Trump's pick to lead the telecommunications agency, saying that BEAD was the victim of a woke social agenda. With that, apparently referring to provisions that encourage states to select companies with racially diverse workforces or unionized firms. And actually, during Roth's Senate confirmation hearing last week, Ted Cruz made essentially the same point.
To date, BEAD has not connected even a single American to high-speed internet service. This is the result of prioritizing partisan requirements like, quote, climate resiliency and rate regulation over actually connecting those who are offline.
Now, notably, with this, you have some like Feynman, the program's former head, arguing that Republicans can actually get rid of those bureaucratic requirements without disrupting the contract. Because I'm telling the Washington Post that Louisiana, Nevada, and Delaware, they've already finalized their plans under BEAD. instead of making them reconsider their plans to include Starlink, the White House could just strip away the woke stuff and let the process go ahead and take the win that Biden gave them. And all of this is, keep in mind, it's not just the Republicans who want to simplify regulation. I don't know how involved you are in the space, but you may have noticed that liberal commentator Ezra Klein has made the rounds recently to promote his book, and he's argued that Democrats have fucked themselves over by putting process before results. And in fact, just a few days ago, he made this claim specifically about BEAD while talking to Jon Stewart, with him laying out the regulatory steps, and you can almost see Stewart's eyes popping further and further out of his skull.
We have to issue the notice of funding opportunity within 180 days. That's step one. Step two is states who want to participate must submit a letter of intent. After they do that, they can submit a request for up to $5 million in planning grants. Then the NTIA, step four, has to review and approve and award, again, planning grants. States must submit a 5-year action plan. So the states kind of go back and they kind of think about how they're going to do this. Then the FCC must publish the broadband data maps. And then, of course, the states need an opportunity to challenge the map for accuracy. So then the NTIA, step 7, has to use the FCC maps to make allocation decisions. Step 8 is states must submit an initial proposal. Step 9, NTIA must review and approve each state's, again, initial proposal. Step 10, states must publish their own map and allow internal challenges to their own map. Step 11, the NTIA must review and improve the challenge results and the final map. Step 12, states must run a competitive sub-branding process.
Oh my fucking God.
Step 13, states must submit a final proposal. Step 14, the NTIA must review and approve the state's final proposal.
I'm speechless, Ezra. Honestly, like, it's...
Hey, you want to live in a country where you can be deported based on your beliefs? Be deported based on things you believe? I don't want to live in that kind of America. But the guy in the White House right now, that's what he's doing. He's kicking people out of this country based on what they...
Far worse than I could have imagined. But the fact that they amputated their own legs on this is what's so stunning.
Right, a lot of what gets hit on there is the how something is done. Right, with part of the idea being having a great policy is great, but then if you make the process complicated and cumbersome and just so slow, not only do you potentially screw your own project, you don't get to showcase them next to yourself. You know how many times covering this space I've seen Congress people going like, hey, look at this great thing that I did, and you're like, you didn't do that. In fact, in some scenarios, it's Congress people who voted against that, but it's been years since, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, look, I'm taking credit. Which I will say, it also boggles my mind because it feels like that's common sense, especially in a political landscape that can change so dramatically every 2 to 4 years, or whether it be the ever-changing Congress every 2 years, or who's in the White House every 4. Right, every change or bill that's not going to be able to fit in that timeline, but there's probably so many things that could. But hey, that's the situation, a little my opinion. And of course, we've heard a few different perspectives, but now I'll throw it to you. I'd love to know your thoughts. And then I've got some more news for you in just a moment. But first, watching my wife with her boys, there are 2 words that always come to mind. Superhuman. Or between juggling calls, running the household, and somehow checking in on me every day, you deserve something that gives her a moment of peace. With Mother's Day on the horizon, today's sponsor, Raycon, and their everyday earbuds, they make a thoughtful gift for the superhuman in your life. First up, the battery life's insane. 32 hours of non-stop sound.
What's up, Louisa? How you doing?
Her entire work week without charging. The multi-point connectivity also helps her jump between her work laptop and phone without the obvious Bluetooth shuffle. The real gift, though, the noise cancellation's next level. Whether she's blocking out the kids' gaming or just trying to find zen during her workout, Raycon has it covered. And all of this is their budget-friendly, starting at half the price of those bougie brands. And all of this, you don't know, I've used mine for years with hiking, walking the dog, or even just doing the dishes. With the ergonomic design, ensuring that they stay in your ears, unlike others that I've tried. Plus, the protective cases, they're low-key aesthetic with wireless charging, cool design, fits perfectly in my tech bag. They're amazing, and the best part is you can try them risk-free with the 30-day happiness guarantee. So for the superhuman in your life work, just for you, head to buyraycon.com/Franco to get up to 20% off site-wide. But then, next up from that, the tariff situation, the cost of goods situation may be about to get crazy. And that, because in about 24 hours, we're going to be finding out just how big of a trade war the world is going to be in. We know that 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, as well as a 25% tariff on all auto imports start tomorrow, or are supposed to. But that also, it might just be the tip of the iceberg, because President Donald Trump is reportedly going to announce another wave of tariffs on just about everyone and everything in what he's been calling Liberation Day. Now with that, the exact details are unclear, but the president is teasing that the tariffs would be nicer than what American goods face in other markets, saying we're going to be very nice by comparison to what they were. The numbers will be lower than what they have been charging us, and in some cases, maybe substantially lower. And this is sources within the White House told outlets various things. For some, saying the administration is looking to implement reciprocal tariffs in order to balance out the tariffs that other countries place on U.S. goods. For example, that the president has harped on for weeks now is the alleged 200 to 300% tariff that American dairy products face in Canada. Though there, as Canadians pointed out, that number is missing a bunch of context. Right, in that example, allegedly 99.9% of American dairy products are actually exempt from the tariff since it only applies once a certain threshold is met. And actually, many tariffs around the world, they have similar carve-outs and exceptions, but what we're seeing is the president seeming to just say the big number and claim that that's what we're going to match. Though this is other advisors are reportedly pushing a different approach. Right, instead, they want to implement a flat tariff of 15 to 25% on essentially every good entering the U.S. And this, as Trump has also said, that some industries, like automobiles, could also be slapped with additional tariffs. And with all of this, they claim that it'll raise upwards of $6 trillion in revenue. You know, with that saying, the money can be used for a variety of things. Obviously, balancing the budget is a top priority for Republicans, at least on paper. But also, other options that have been floated around include some kind of tax rebate or payout to Americans. But what I'll add here is that it sounds right? If you're going to give me money, love that. Any sort of rebate like that, if it even happens, would likely not even be close to the crazy amount extra that Americans would have to pay for nearly everything if such a tariff were to go into effect. And in fact, we're seeing experts saying, and it's kind of a grand irony, this would mean that Republicans would be responsible for the largest tax hike ever in U.S. history. And understand, we do not know fully how this is going to play out, the scale of things. Right? Any tariffs, they are going to trigger a trade war, but experts are warning that a flat 20%, that would be disastrous. With, for example, seeing an economics professor at Harvard who wrote a popular economist textbook blasting any of these plans. With them pointing out that low tariffs and open global trade, it's one of the few things that economists agree on. With them even adding, Trump doesn't seem to understand basic international economics. A lot of the arguments he makes, Adam Smith was refuting 2.5 centuries ago in Wealth of Nations. Adding, I have not seen a more wrong-headed policy come out of a White House in decades. And this is the chief economist for Moody's, a major financial outlook company, said that a flat tariff would almost immediately put the U.S. economy into a recession and that stocks would lose 1/4 their value by 2027. With them then also fearing that unemployment will dramatically rise. And notably, Moody's is hardly the only financial institution making these predictions, with essentially all of them bracing for the worst. Right? So with all that, when we look out at the landscape of this whole situation, it's not surprising that we're seeing clear signs that investors are on edge. And we're seeing stuff like gold, which is traditionally seen as a hedge during economic downturns, rising above 3,100 per ounce for the first time ever. But, you know, with all that, the TLDR is that economists widely agree that a flat rate on everything would be the worst case scenario. But the good news, although it's only good because of the other options, is that Trump seemed to back off from the flat rate approach yesterday, telling reporters, whatever they charge us, we'll charge them. Though reportedly, many administration officials don't like this approach because it'll incentivize companies to instead move products to a third country before importing them in order to dodge the tariffs. But either way, right, these tariffs allegedly are an attempt by the administration to restructure the world's economy. You know, the president, they have the widespread authority to do this under the 1977 International Emergency Economics Powers Act. But yeah, with all that said, hopefully you understand a bit more, and we'll have to wait to see what does or does not happen on Liberation Day. The details are all up in the air right now, but they pretty much all point to an economic downturn, according to almost every economist. But then, next up from that, we have your once daily DeFranco recommended dose of good news, and with that, I'd like you to meet Wendell and Artemis. So they're service dogs that were trained by inmates in the San Quentin State Prison. And this, because back in 2023, San Quentin introduced a puppy training program run by Canine Companion, which is a nonprofit based in Santa Rosa. And they bring in these puppies between 2 and 4 months old that are then placed with inmates within San Quentin for training. And the dogs stay with the inmates until they're roughly 16 months old, and during that time, the inmates are responsible for teaching the dogs about 20 foundational commands and skills, as well as just caring for them. But then, every few months during that time, the dogs are taken out into the world for socialization experiences like interacting with children, riding in cars, or going to the grocery store. And then, after that, the dogs go to professional trainers for several more months before they are then given to people with disabilities as service animals. Also, before we do start talking about the safety of the dogs, only inmates in returned living units, which is where they're allowed to participate in a wide variety of self-help programs, are allowed to apply. Notably, only those without a history of animal or child abuse or cruelty are allowed to participate. So what we've seen with this program thus far is it's been pretty successful, with James Stern, the National Director of Puppy Programs for Canine Companion, saying that dogs trained by inmates had a 10% success rate at becoming service dogs than other candidates. And it's actually because of the time and care that the incarcerated men put into these dogs, which is absolutely evident in Chase Benoit and Jared Henson. You see, Chase and Jared, they were part of the first round of prison puppy training at San Quentin back in 2023. free. They were the ones that laid the foundational training for Artemis and Wendell. For the
What's
first
up,
time,
Amberly?
Scott
How you
graduated,
doing?
Chase and Jared got to see them again as well as their owners. What ended being an emotional reunion, right? You had Jared telling Wendell's new owner, he remembers me for sure. I could tell when he came in. I'm so happy that you love him and that you have a bond. And Chase telling AP News that it was amazing seeing Artemis in action and serving the community. And now it's
time for you to get your reading super powered. So stop straining your eyes and start listening instead.
I have to do a lot of reading for my job. You know, emails, contracts, PDFs. To stay focused, I use a free Google Chrome extension called Speechify. It's like the voice of the internet. I get a play button everywhere. So if I click play on email, it reads. If I click play on a PDF, it reads. If I have physical books, I take a picture, it reads.
Speechify can read to you in the highest quality digital voices available anywhere. So let's say you have to read an incredibly long email from your boss that you have to finish before the big meeting starts in 10 minutes.
pretty cool. Since the first round, the puppy program at San Quentin has grown to 16 trainers and 2 dog sitters who are currently training 8 puppies. And this is there are similar programs at more than 20 other prison institutions, with Dern saying being given something to care about other than themselves and the opportunity to give back and sort of start to make amends for the things they have done in their lives can be life-changing. We saw this in Echo's Right Chase said, being in this program, it's given me something that I think I've searched for my whole life, and that was meaningful purpose, doing something that's good, better, bigger than myself, and feeling like I'm part of something great. So with that, I gotta say, hats off not only to Artemis and Wendell for being exceptional service dogs, but also to Chase and Jared for doing the work to get them to that point, and then finally, Canine Companion for giving them that opportunity. Then, finally today, let's talk about y'all's comments on yesterday's show, and some commentary brought to you by BeautifulBastard.com, where right now you can get any of this year's bestsellers for 15% off if you use code PDF15. That's in addition to items that we have for 50% off right now, including 3 packs of our core gear. Right, so grab yourself. God is testing me and I refuse to study. Clearly thrive on a silly goose in this economy and all this goodness. And hell, that code even works with stuff that's already 50% off, like a 3-pack of core teas or candles and so much more. So definitely check it all out at beautifulbastard.com. Links in the description. But like I said, let's talk about those comments. Right, to start off there were a lot of comments about the fluoride situation. Game Buoy Games joking, oh no, there's fluoride in my leaded water. As well as Iron Waffle saying, fluoride bad, raw milk good in 2025. This should not be a popular opinion. Can you imagine how far ahead we could be if we had better education from preschool to graduate?
This kind of prosecutorial overreach is inevitably going to cause more of a backlash. More of a backlash in favor of Luigi Mangione and also against the administration. All right, let's start with Luigi Mangione.
United Healthcare CEO killer Luigi Mangione. Let's bring in CBS News correspondent Chanel Call live in a newsroom for us. Chanel, what can you tell us?
Yeah, coming to you live once again from our breaking news desk this morning, Muko, and we just got this release from the U.S. Justice Department moments ago. I want to read to you part of it, coming from Attorney General Pamela Bondi's office. It says, quote, Luigi Mangione's murder of Brian Thompson, an innocent man and father of 2 young children, was a premeditated, cold-blooded assassination that shocked America. After careful consideration, I've directed federal prosecutors to seek the death penalty in this case as we carry out President Trump's agenda to stop violent crime and make America safe again. It goes on to say that the murder was an act of political violence and that Mangione's actions involved substantial planning and premeditation.
Death penalty for killing rich people? Yeah. Oh no. I mean, this is no. It's not worth it. I still can't see even with the lights on, so.
Yeah, GoDaddy Arrow is so easy. AI built me a website in minutes. No hassle, no passive-aggressive opinions. No, I'm a website building genius. It's a dream. Unlike working with this nightmare, this is really gonna help my business. And probably save a friendship.
I also want to mention that we knew this was a possibility, Mugo, after Luigi Mangione was charged federally back in December. He first faced 11 state charges. That included murder as an act of terrorism, and this is in connection to the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Mangione has so far pleaded not guilty to those state charges, but the federal charges, they allow prosecutors to pursue the death penalty against him. Today, now, when we talk about capital punishment, AG Pam Bondi directing federal prosecutors to seek the death penalty in this case. We know Mangione has not yet entered a plea in that federal case, but prosecutors have already said that these two state cases and federal cases will essentially proceed on parallel tracks, with the state charges expected to go to trial first.
Wow, some very important background and context there. Chanel called it.
Yeah, I mean, the Mangione case is, and all of the escalated charges surrounding it are entirely because of politics. Luigi Mangione's actions being taken as an act of terror in the state of New York is specifically because of politics. On the federal case, Attorney General Pam Bondi pushing for this to be elevated or demanded a death penalty on it is once again pure politics. The reason why they're doing this is because they want to make an example out of him. And it's kind of interesting because I feel like this creates a unique opportunity for the court system, or at least his defense attorneys, to try to push for a mistrial. Like there is a lot of outside interference in this case. I don't know. I mean, I hope that they don't end up crucifying him. I also don't know if crucifying him like this is going to backfire, you know, in terms of like how people see him, how people treat this case, because he was seen as a relatively positive figure, and I don't think that the attitude has shifted by the broader American population. I think that they still look at what he allegedly did as not a inherently evil act, even though obviously murder is evil, right? Murder is bad. It's unacceptable. Allegedly, Luigi Mangione's alleged murdering Brian Thompson. The very fact that in a country like America, where people are incredibly draconian and have this very straightforward approach to law, order, justice. The very fact that like they can still look at a situation like this as an open and shut case and still go, yeah, well, the other guy has a lot more bodies because he's a private healthcare CEO is wild to me. It is indicative of how much pain private healthcare has caused in this country, and I think that this kind of prosecutorial overreach is inevitably going to cause more of a backlash. More of a backlash in favor of Luigi Mangione and also against the administration. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Americans are so hog-minded that they'll turn around and go, no, actually we were wrong for the things that we thought and the things that we said. Maybe hogs will get in line and say, yeah, no, Luigi was a bad guy. He's a terrorist. He deserves the death penalty. Who knows? But he is very white, and he does come from a wealthy family. A lot of these things optically play a formative role in garnering support for Luigi's actions beyond the fact that beyond who his target was. Murder is never a valid excuse for anything. Yeah, it's not. But that's not what what is this? He's guilty of someone who shot I'm positive he's a murderer. I wouldn't praise him if he murdered a parent. You wouldn't praise him if he murdered a parent of yours. Murder is never a valid excuse for anything. Yeah, the entire point here is whether murder is good or bad. I think everyone understands. First of all, allegedly, we don't know if he did it. Innocent until proven guilty. That's number one. Number two, I can't believe I can barely see the screen in front of me, and I'm still using that limited amount of vision that I have to respond to a silly ass chatter who was refusing to understand that it is not. The interesting part about this conversation back and forth is not whether or not murder is wrong. Everyone understands that, okay? Everyone understands murder is bad. If you were, if that's how people dealt with issues, I mean, society would collapse. You just go and be like, all right, well, you know, you wronged me. I'm gonna, it's not exactly going to make for a stable society. Now, having said that, the reason why people still have a sympathetic outlook on him, even though Americans also usually operate in this,
what's up, Eric?
with this, I just hear so many people praise him, and I'm sorry, I just don't get it. Yeah, you don't get it. I don't know what your background is. I don't know what your, what your family's wealth looks like. But there's a reason why so many people praise him, and that is because they understandably see someone like Brian Thompson as a placeholder for an incredible amount of death and destruction. So much so that even Americans who normally have the exact same attitude that you have are looking at the situation and going, yeah, well, I mean, it's a little bit of a vigilante justice moment, you know? Because they see Brian Thompson functionally as a serial killer, okay? Because people like Brian Thompson engage in the act of social murder. It is systematized murder, it is processed murder, it's murder through paperwork, but it's murder nonetheless to the individual who watches their loved ones suffer through their cancer treatment and have to forego treatment because they can't pay for it because their insurance decided to deny that claim. It's like, that is, for them, whether it is being done by the stroke of a pen or with a sniper rifle or with a bullet, it's still experienced as murder. That's the way they see it. Just because it's done for profit doesn't change that reality, right? Maybe you don't live in the United States of America though, because like maybe that's the reason why you don't understand it. But you know, that is what it is. You often argue that criminal migrants should be locked up in the U.S. It would be disingenuous for you to argue that allegedly murderer should not go to jail. What? Should not go to jail? Not that you are doing that. It would be Am I reading this correct? It would be disingenuous for you to argue that an allegedly murderer should not go to jail? Okay, first of all, there's a difference in the crimes. We're talking about like someone who's done like a serial something. What? No sentence, convict for murder? What? I'm confused as to what you're saying. Maybe my brain is also breaking down aside from my vision, so maybe I don't know what you were trying to say. I said if someone has gone through the legal process and has been convicted of a heinous act, a gruesome crime, a murder or a rape or something like that, I think that, yes, justice should be served. Okay? If Luigi Mangione was a undocumented immigrant, I would still have a fairly similar attitude about it all. That his citizenship status or his documentation would not change my attitude at all, because I'm looking at the individual deed. But I went through his tweets. I'm sorry that I'm being woke today, but his tweet on Japan really irked me as an immigrant myself. How do I cope with that? Not asking rhetorically, really asking as an honest question. I don't care. I just don't care. I don't have, my expectations are not, go to urgent care, my guy. Everybody shut up. It's fine. Okay, calm down. What did he say that could make you feel more empathy for a millionaire CEO? No, it's not even a millionaire CEO. It's a millionaire CEO whose entire livelihood relies on denying the average American the healthcare coverage that they paid for. Okay? That's an entirely different, that's a totally different spectrum of pain. We're not talking about like, I don't know, a millionaire CEO that sells paint or something, okay? Like sitting on top of sitting on top of an empire that sells paintbrushes and paint supplies. We're talking about like a dude whose livelihood directly involves your parents getting f***ed over and possibly dying. Claim denials.
If none of your friends have told you about the Skip Forever button, those aren't your friends. This is Pi, and if it sounds familiar to you, it's probably because you've seen their ads everywhere, especially this one. It's a free Chrome extension that blocks ads basically everywhere else you go online. And no, it's not one of those sketch...
directly a form of violence. What if the paint has cancerous chemicals? Yeah, I mean, I guess that would be the equivalent in this situation. You know what I mean? If the CEO was knowingly selling cancerous paint, and just like tens of thousands of people every year were just dying because of the cancer and the cancer they were getting from the toxic chemicals in the paint itself or something. Like, that would be the equivalent. And it would have to be done in such a serialized, systematized way that like virtually every other paint company was doing the same exact practices, and tens of thousands of people were dying because of this every year, and then someone was like, yo, I'm taking revenge. It would have to happen over such a long period of time where like Americans that normally never understand systematic violence would be able to see what this paint CEO was doing as a systematized version of violence, like a social murder, if you will. Actually, I just realized paint is not even an appropriate analog here, because paint has utility. Private healthcare does not. It doesn't need to exist at all. I just realized that even, like, there is quite literally no reason for this expensive middleman to exist in this process, and it is only there to make money for the company. That's it. It has no use. It is only a burden.
I might play a game later. We'll see. I wanted to get my house done first.
Paint CEO is not an appropriate analog here. It's just like, you also need healthcare. You don't need paint. No, but they are not providing healthcare. They are providing healthcare insurance. Yes, you need healthcare. You don't need healthcare insurance technically. And the only way that these guys make money is by denying you coverage that you paid for. Like, that's how they make their money. It's just so messed up when you think about it. I don't know. I don't know how more people are not constantly losing their minds over how ridiculous this is.
Business taxes was always so all-consuming. Now business taxes is having a TurboTax.
What's up, Noden? You hate me? Why do you hate me? What did I do?
Every spring, a familiar claim starts circulating online.
Today's episode is a very... Welcome to Intuitive Astrology.
Overnight, the president's most powerful advisor, Elon Musk, taking the stage at a Wisconsin town hall wearing a cheese hat.
But let me first hand out 2 $1 million checks in appreciation.
Handing out $1 million checks to those who signed his political group, America PAC's petition against, quote, activist judges. With just one day until the state's Supreme Court election.
It all started early yesterday morning. On X, Wisconsin to give a talk and give out $1 million checks to 2 people. That post has since been deleted. And yesterday, Musk clarified his post with a new one saying only voters who signed that petition would be invited to his event and eligible for one of those $1 million checks. Kaylee Starl joins us live in studio right now. And Kaylee, you spent the...
What does Elon want out of this result? Easy. Elon Musk is Donald Trump's attack dog. And as long as Elon has Twitter and can use Twitter for Donald Trump, as long as Elon Musk has his billions and he can use them to primary Republicans that speak out of turn or even unseat Democrats potentially, this is a testing ground for him. If he can show that he can change the outcome of this race for an entire state, mind you, then he can prove his worth to Donald Trump, and he can continue doing whatever the he wants to the federal government, and Trump will keep defending him. If the Republican loses this race, then he takes a major hit. If you don't care about at least having some semblance of a state judiciary that will protect your rights and liberties, okay, and it's not the end all be all, but like it's still much better than having a right-wing dominated state Supreme Court. If all of that stuff is not important to you, then remember, Elon Musk is a major piece of shit. And if he loses this race, then that puts him in bad standing with Donald Trump, which will inevitably yield tremendous amounts of drama. Tremendous amounts of drama, because Trump hates losers more than anything else. Ally, enemy, doesn't matter. He can't stand losers, okay? He's like, you're a loser, I'm cutting you off. You're done. You're done. Bye-bye. Now imagine if he did a you're a loser bye-bye to Elon Musk. Oh my God, that battle would be epic. That would be incredible. You know what's one of the funniest things that Elon Musk did, by the way, when he went on this like stupid ass thing? When he's like doing the whole I'm going to give money to random people if you go out and vote, which is questionable on its ethics and questionable on whether or not it is illegal, even though he won a court case in Pennsylvania for doing just this, because technically it's not a lottery system, but instead it's pre-selected. And by the way, the fact that it's not random is the reason why he's able to do this, or at least was the reason why he was able to win the Pennsylvania court case. Here it is, by the way, in a video posted by Elon Musk PAC, 1 million check recipient link voting to receiving the money. My name is Ekaterina Deisler. I did exactly what Elon Musk told everyone to do. Sign the petition, refer friends and family, vote, and now I have $1 million.
My name is Ekaterina Deisler. I'm from Green Bay, Wisconsin. I did exactly what Elon Musk told everyone to do. Sign the petition, refer friends and family, vote, and now I have $1 million.
Yeah, I think she's like a Republican Republican operative, from what I understand. What is funny about this, on the other hand, is that he has been consistently crying about, one, George Soros, and two, paid protesters. And it's yet another instance where he is literally doing the thing that he is yelling about. He is doing, this is, finally, I retweeted one of Warren Gunnels' tweets, by the way, earlier this morning. They are literally paid protesters. Like Elon says that. Warren
I am
responds,
scrubbing my floor.
$277 to Trump, and now you're running the government. You're literally handing out $100 bills and $1 million.
If you want to maybe scrub my floor for me, that'd be swag.
People are protesting because
I can't read your name. I can't read everything.
Destroying Social Security. It's so funny.
I switched from due dates to due dates, and it made me go from weeks behind to weeks ahead of my deadline. You see, I used to just bedrot all day getting nothing done. And you know that feeling of anxiety where ticking off items in your daily chores and to-do list is quite overwhelming? That was me. That was until I was told about this one secret. This is called time blocking, and it changed my life. There are loads of articles and studies about how it's such an effective productivity.
Yeah, kiss my pal. Go back to Mexico. I respect your point of view. I respect your point of view. Yeah, stay across the border, Pedro. I respect your point of view.
Sick. Just, also, no arguments, just racism. No argument, just racism. Yeah, Pedro, go back to Mexico.
Yeah, we don't respect yours because yours is nothing.
Yikes.
They have no point of view. They say we don't want Social Security. We do.
What?
We don't like this. We do. They're nothing but a bunch of liars.
He's not paying protesters.
I'll learn it. I'll learn it. Someday you'll come back and I'll be able to read it.
Easiest money you ever made. You don't even need to be from Wisconsin. You just need to get people in the state to hold a picture of Team Schimmel, can be on the phone, device or paper in one hand, and go thumbs up with the other hand. Every time you do that, you get $20, and they get $20. The goal is to build awareness about the election tomorrow. So this offer applies today and tomorrow. This is literally paid. Dude, this is what they say George Soros is doing. And to be fair, Does George Soros operate a massive network of liberal society organizations? He does. Does he pay every f***ing protester? Of course not. This is flagrantly what they say George Soros is doing. When they lie about what George Soros is doing, they're doing it. It's so funny. I don't understand. Like, how? What? What's the difference? Is it because Elon is not Jewish? Is that what it is? Because I can't see any real difference here between what they claim George Soros is doing and what Elon Musk is actually doing right now. I'm not exactly a fan of any billionaire, and definitely not George Soros either. And even on like the Jewish billionaire front, you got more motion on Miriam Adelson. Like, Miriam Adelson directly has had a straightforward impact. The Adelsons have had straightforward impact on American foreign policy under Trump in ways that no one could have ever imagined. Like, singularly. Because Trump is so open about his transparent graft, where he's just like, oh, you give me $100 million? Yeah, I'll throw in Golan Heights in the package for you. And it's not like this is a Jewish conspiracy. This is just something that Trump has admitted to doing. And ironically, a combating anti-Semitism seminar before he won the election, where he just straight up went in front of a crowd of Omega Zionists and said, if I don't win the election, it's because of you Jews. And then also said, remember when the Adelsons gave me money? That's why I did the embassy. That's why I did the Abraham Accords. And I threw in Golan Heights as a sweetener. They didn't even ask for Golan Heights. I threw it in. He openly said it. Here are the 2025 Wisconsin Supreme Court race expenditures. Billionaire donations to the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Elon Musk through PACs, Diane Hendricks, Elizabeth Ulian, George Soros. No motion. This is what I'm saying. George Soros has no fucking motion, dude. 6 Democrats, 5 Republicans. I'm losing my mind. Oh my God. 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 Elon Musk alone has single-handedly outspent every other fucking billionaire combined, and this dumb is still going, oh, less Republicans.
As you may have seen with stuff that we've posted on the Doge.gov website and the Doge handle on the X platform, there is a tremendous amount of waste and fraud in the federal government. Like, shocking, really. It's insane. Yeah. It's really wild. So, okay. I mean, it was inevitable that at least a few Soros operatives would be in the audience. Give my regards.
Building your online business? Go to Wix.com and set up your store on a single integrated platform. Add products. Showcase them dynamically.
George Soros is nothing compared to you. You are literally George Soros. What are you talking about? Oh, George Soros operatives in the audience. Yeah, George Soros operatives everywhere, dude. There are George Soros operatives for all with eyes to see. They're everywhere, dude. They're everywhere. He's such a lame-ass loser, man. It is crazy how big of a goddamn loser he is. Oh my God.
Say hi to George from me. USA.
Yeah, George Soros operatives is a Dave Chappelle show. George Soros operatives in Italy. George Soros operatives in Germany and all these European countries where they're like burning Teslas and shit. They're everywhere, it seems. Dude, the entire European continent despises this man. It is so funny. Every European liberal has like endless amounts of smoke for this dude. And for that, I just have, normally I've on European libs in general, but goddamn, I have so much solidarity with the European libs who despise this douchebag, okay? Maybe, at a certain point, you're just a despicable person and people hate you, you know? Maybe it's not all paid protesters. What? Oh yeah, remember, oh my God. technically, it was 90% cheers and 10% booze, except during quiet periods. But still, that's a lot of booze, which is a first for me in real life. Frequent on Twitter. It's almost as if I've offended SF's unhinged leftists, but nah, yeah, dude, unhinged leftists is a Dave Chappelle show. Like, they came in to see Dave Chappelle, big dog. It's crazy.
I mean, it was inevitable that at least a few Soros operatives would be in the audience. Give my regards to George. Say hi to George for me. USA, 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 USA. Yep. I mean, it was inevitable. I was waiting for that one. So, I mean, yeah, thank you. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I mean, isn't it shocking how much violence and hatred is coming from the left?
Oh, isn't it shocking? Meanwhile, I want to kill everybody. Meanwhile, my administration that I'm working for is deporting random people who are working with children with autism. That's not violent, of course. It's all leftist violence. Isn't it shocking, the leftist violence? When someone put the gun on the Tesla, that's the real violence, not the mass deportation. Isn't it shocking, the leftist violence? I hate him. I hate him so much. Oh my God.
I mean, isn't it supposed to be the party that they claim to be the party of empathy?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
And yet they're burning Teslas and shooting up dealerships and calling for the death of the president and me. I'm like, guys, you know, this is insane. Like, they're...
You know what it is? It's just how uncharismatic he is that pisses me off. Because I think of, like, all of the dumb that go, no, he's great, he's so cool, he's so charismatic. Like, it just, that's what pisses me off about it. At least with Trump, he's telegenic, you know, he's zesty, he's funny, he's got like a penchant for drama, he has an appreciation of the arts. Whereas with Elon, there's nothing there. He is a perfect demonstration that as long as you say the words, these dumb on the right will go, hell yeah, Mr. President, we love you. That to me is terrifying about the future prospects of this country. If you can get a group of people to believe this man is charismatic and has their best interests, you can get them to believe anything.
Hey, nice shirt.
Oh, thank you. First of all, Path of Exile for life. But more important...
That's an Asmongold fan. 100p. First of all, Path of Exile for life.
As we see, the whole world has turned to a fear-based mobilization effort. And we've seen that translate into violence, and the right's not immune to it, because it can hit anybody's psychology.
Sure.
How do we beat that with optimism? Because that's going to be crucial to avoid mass eruption of conflict.
Yeah, I mean, there does seem to be... you're right that the right is not immune from sort of hate and violence. It's not like nothing, but it does seem weirdly heavily weighted towards the left. I mean, like, I haven't seen anyone carrying off like a Biden Harris hat. Like, we're just like, you feel a bit sorry for them, like, oh, maybe they're wrong there, you know. But you see people tearing off MAGA hats. And somebody just, you know, I saw a video just today where somebody was just on an escalator, a woman was on an escalator wearing a MAGA hat, and someone going in the other direction tore the hat off her head. And I'm like, what, that's rude. You know?
Is he talking about that fake-ass video? That was the fakest video of all time that I saw on my Twitter timeline this morning, of the lady going down an escalator with a Trump hat, and then the other lady being like, yo, bitch, I hate you and everything that Trump stands for. Democrats are completely unhinged, says real James Woods. Bro, this is literally like, this is like a child. When you're a child and you like draw something and then you're afraid of your own drawing. Like, you invented a reality, and that invention, in your own mind, scared you shitless. Amazing.
Democrats are completely unhinged.
Woman! You're a woman! What the fuck?
Okay, my phone's about to die, guys, but I will be back. I love you guys. Have a beautiful night.